School district consolidation has not been very successful in New York State. So this year's state budget includes a provision aimed at alleviating one of the obstacles in district mergers. It's the disparity in tax rates. The new law would allow merging school districts to have their tax rates deferred for a 1-year period or phased in over a 10-year period should those rates go up because of a merger. Some, however, say this is not enough. The New York State Association of School Business Officials has released a report on this issue, and joining me now to explain is Michael Borges. He is from the association, the executive director, actually. It is good to see you.
Thank you for having me again.
My pleasure. Okay, so you looked in depth at these 30 districts that explored merging since 2010 and failed to do so.
Correct.
And generally what we come away with from this, not too terribly lengthy, but generally
easy
large report is people don't like mergers. I mean, you leave it up to the voters and they usually say no.
Well, there are a lot of obstacles to mergers. There was a big wave in the 1800s. We went from 11,000 in 1800 to 9,000 in 1900, and then they instituted some laws to remove obstacles to merger, and we went from 9,000 then to under 700 today. So there has been progress, but it has petered off over time as certain obstacles have not been removed to facilitate mergers. And one of them was the disparate tax rates when school districts merge. We identified other obstacles like the having the straw vote before you having an actual vote, having a vote by school district as opposed to an overall area vote, which they actually used to have in the 1990s, which made it easier to merge. So, and then there's also merger aid, which is insufficient to help smooth the transition to a merged school district. So there are a number of obstacles that are easy fixes. So if the governor really wants and the state policymakers want continued mergers to occur, those obstacles need to be removed.
Okay, can we go back to the 1800s for a second?
Yes, sure.
All right, but back then, you're talking about like every little town had its own little schoolhouse,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is a significantly different picture than what we're looking at today.
Correct.
You're not having like one little red schoolhouse is serving 20 kids in each community, and they're separated by 5 miles, right? Which you could only get through if you walked or had a horse or whatever. Mm-hmm. Now you have a situation where when we're down to 700, particularly in some of the rural areas, merging is just doesn't make that much sense. Even though you have fewer kids and the population is dropping, you have a major geographical distance to overcome, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. I mean, what our report sort of zeroed in on was that mergers can save minimal amount of money in certain size school districts. So of less than 1,500 kids in a school, you can save some money. But the overall reason for merging shouldn't be the cost savings. It should be, how do we benefit our kids? If you live in a small community with a small school district and it has limited opportunities for educational advancement, you should think about merging with a larger school district or another nearby school district where then the educational opportunities are even greater. So your school district with 200 and something kids may not have AP classes or certain foreign languages or music or band. But if you merged with a bigger school district, you might have the resources to have AP classes and have music and have band and all those kinds of things. So I think the prime reason for mergers should not be cost savings, but should be how do we enhance the educational opportunities for our kids.
But that seems to run counter to actually what the administration seems to be saying.
Yes.
The administration's drive is efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. I don't hear a lot from the administration about educational opportunities.
No, and then I think last time I was on this show, you told me we had a lot of not in common with the governor. And I
apparently, I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, so but the governor's premise is that we have too many school districts, and that may be so. But when you look at the numbers, and that's what we do, we look at the numbers, is that there aren't significant cost savings when you merge school districts. There are some, but not the overriding reason why you should merge. Again, and if you want mergers to occur, there are several obstacles that we have identified that should be removed, and they haven't done that yet. So I think if they want to facilitate mergers, they should work on those obstacles.
But do you want them to? It's unclear to me if the
well, if it works for that community, if it's in the best interest of those kids, then that's what they should do.
Okay, but what about the association's position?
Well, the association's position is that if it's in the best interest of that community, then we should. I mean, we're about serving the kids, serving the students. We're an advocate for students, for kids, and like the governor,
right?
And and so what's in the best interest of our children? If it's a merged school district, then that's what they should do. And the property tax freeze that the governor proposed, that we have to work with now, is not a solution to the problem. All it does, again, is try to smash us together and merge us together without removing obstacles and without addressing the ultimate cost driver for school expenses. The governor keeps on harping about how we are the highest spending per pupil in the country. Well, what drives those costs? It's not the number of school districts, it's what we spend our money on.
Even though if you take out these obstacles that you're referring to,
Right.
It doesn't seem to me that you address the issue of community identity that voters seem to be hung up on. In other words, you can make it easier for a merger to take place, but you can't lead the voter to the merger and make them approve it.
Correct, right. And one of the other things we recommended, which the regions have recommended, is regional high schools.
Yes.
I mean, you could still keep your community schools and just have a consolidated high school. And there are actually 2 or 3 of them, high school districts in the state. I think they're all on Long Island, and they work perfectly well, where they have several elementary to middle school feeder schools, school districts, that feed into a central high school district. And that works on Long Island. So if it works there, perhaps it could work in other places. So, regional high schools are another possible solution. Again, the whole idea is to provide a better education for our kids.
This idea of the freeze, though, I mean, what are school districts doing to prepare for that? Because it is incredibly complicated. We're talking a lot about that this evening. And I know that the counties are trying to, get everybody onto the same page, but it's unclear to me exactly how it's going to work. And I'm not, as I speak to more people in your shoes, it's not clear to me that you guys know how it's going to work
Well,
either.
yeah, I mean, we have like a 2 or 3 pages worth of questions, and which we have asked that the governor's office and Division of Budget to answer. And what we're having on Thursday is the State Department of Tax and Finance is doing a webinar for our members to explain how the property tax freeze is supposed to work. So, we do have a lot of questions. We're not, again, I think it's an election year ploy to just drive checks into people's voters' hands come the fall.
But those checks can only go out if you're underneath the 2% or in the next year you've consolidated
right,
or
but
made
a
some
majority of
effort
school districts have already been under the cap. I think we only had 28 last year, and there's going to be probably less this year.
Right.
So majority of school districts are already under the cap, so incentivizing them to stay under the cap really isn't.
In year 1,
yeah,
but
year
it
1.
gets more complicated in year 2.
In year 2, you have to sign on to a plan that shows you're engaging in some sort of cost sharing or consolidation or mergers. But again, it doesn't take into consideration all the sharing, cost savings, merging that have happened beforehand. And we were troubled by Bob Magnus, the Director of Budget's comments that they weren't going to pay attention a lot to
Well,
what
they're going to
happened.
pay attention, but the exact look-back period seems to be a little bit up in the air.
Yes, and so we're concerned by that because a lot of the smaller school districts, the rural ones especially, have done all they can short of a merger, and it's unfair to not to take that into consideration.
If you were to be a betting person, how many districts do you think we would have 10 years from now?
10 years from now? Well, I mean, there are currently, out of the last 17 that tried to merge, 15 failed. So the odds aren't great. And there are currently, I think there's like 4 or 5 school districts that are considering merging, doing the studies now. So unless some of these obstacles are removed, unless there's a sort of a window of opportunity that shows them that their kids are going to get a better education as a result of a merger, then there's no real future for that to happen.
Even with the incentive that's included in the budget, which is to say if District A and District B try to merge and one district's taxes are going to go up dramatically as a result, then it would be sort of phased in over a number of years.
But that money to offset that phase-in comes from the other school districts. So if your taxes are going down 5% and mine are going up 10%, I'm going to take money from your 5% to reduce my 10% increase. So there's no new money coming in. It just takes money from one community, gives it to the other, so that everybody is on a sort of a level playing field. What we're saying, the state should up its merger aid and update its merger aid so that money from the state goes towards.
How much?
Well, I don't know. We have to figure out what that entails, what that's going to cost schools. And again, if the governor wants this to happen, we've identified ways to make it happen.
But I'm still unclear as if you're advocating in favor of making it happen. That's the part that I think is curious because also, it just seems like generally speaking, these mergers fail because the public says no.
Well, again, we want what's best for our school children. So if a merger is in the best interest of our school children, then they should be considering that. So.
Well, okay. So it's a story to be continued, as most of these are. And hopefully you guys will come back and talk to us after the webinar occurs and people get their questions answered. Hopefully you will get your questions
We hope so.
answered. Okay, thank
Because
you
we have to
very
implement
much.
this thing.
Indeed, thank you.